This is a very unusual day. I've come to a secret location in the east of England. It's one of the few places in the country that you're allowed to fire heavy weaponry. I've come here because we're looking at one of the most revolutionary and important weapons of World War I, the machine gun. Machine guns have been tested at this weapons facility for generations, and it bears the scars. Machine guns rose to a position of such prominence in World War I that they came to symbolise the entire conflict. This was a futuristic weapon unimaginable just a couple of generations before.
Okay, so we'll close the top cover. The sight's already up. Pull that one through.
How many crew would these have had?
Anything between 4 and 8.
So it could have had an 8-man crew. There's people loading these belts, there's people carrying the equipment.
You had a guy that pulled the sled on harnesses attached to his webbing. You had the guy that carried the gun. You had a guy that brought all the ammunition up. So we have here the trigger, then we just depress the triggers and away it should go. Okay, done. And now just depress this over to one side and you're now basically ready to fire.
That is a feeling of extraordinary power, given it's the same as rifle ammunition, but it feels like it's a piece of artillery. Amazing. Really amazing. You certainly get the feeling of being on the end of an extraordinary explosive power here. You feel like you're projecting these bullets down the range, unlike anything I've ever experienced before. One of the ways to really get an appreciation for just how many bullets a machine gun is capable of firing is to load it, and that means putting all these individual bullets into an ammunition belt like this. Right, let's fire the Vickers, the British version. I mean, was this do you think it's better than the German version, or what's your opinion on this?
Yes, it was better. It was a lighter gun. It was a very reliable gun.
Because there's that story about the 10 Vickers machine guns, wasn't it, the summer of 1960 at the Battle of Somme, and they all fired continuously for 12 hours.
Yep.
And in that case, they managed to fire 1 million rounds in 12 hours, didn't they?
Yeah, and without any reported failures, which is even more phenomenal. Our safety catches these paddles, which we pull towards us, and this is now our trigger.
Right. Safety?
Safety. Thumbs over the top, that's it.
Firing. You can really feel the shockwaves coming off that one, can't you?
You can. Basically, this is virtually identical to the German, but being much lightweight, you feel you're more exposed to it. The German one was much heavier, much larger.
This one feels more like a sort of wild horse that's a bit skittish. It's a strange thing to come here today and fire these machine guns, because you're actually replicating some of the actions that caused the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people during World War I. But unless you come here and understand these and work out what they can do, it's really impossible to understand that slaughter in its entirety. Right, next, I suppose, in a way, it's the odd one out, the Lewis gun.
It is the odd one out, but it actually outnumbered the Vickers 3-1 by the end of the war.
And this was brought on into service during the war. This is state of the art in World War I.
It was, and it was the most mobile machine gun of World War I.
Because obviously these ones are quite immobile, aren't they? You know, you think about these ones being used in the classic defensive battles and mowing down the oncoming infantry. This is actually designed to be taken forward. It's an offensive weapon.
It's an assault weapon. Yeah, it certainly is. It is the very first machine gun that was designed really to be lightweight, carry it, and take the fight to the enemy across no man's land. And the Germans hated it. They despised it, but they also admired it when they captured it, and they used them in great numbers.
They used a lot of them, didn't they?
Yeah.
Right, let's give it a go.
Now that I've found you and see
The guys are just de-rigging the guns now, and it's been a shocking but fascinating demonstration of the sheer power of these machine guns. It's probably as close as I'm ever going to get to the sounds and some of the smells of a First World War battlefield, thank goodness. And just looking at these weapons, experiencing the kick and seeing the power that they throw out, it really is a scary thing to think about just how many deaths these guns have been responsible for. The design of a weapon system tells you a huge amount about the culture of the society that produces them. In the case of the German Mauser rifle, this was a superbly engineered bit of kit reflecting German engineering prowess. About 1.5 meters long with the bayonet on the end, a reminder that these rifles were also to be used in close combat. It was descended from a hunting rifle. It was extremely accurate at very long ranges. It's got a longer barrel than some of the other rifles at the time, which is what gave it that accuracy and that range. It's made of walnut, which is a good solid hardwood, weighs just over 4 kilos. Right, we'll try and fire a few rounds off on the famous Gewehr 98. Well, it's certainly got a lot of kick, more than I was expecting. And it feels like an extremely chunky, solid, reliable weapon. The British are armed with this. Short magazine Lee Enfield. The #1 Mark III was issued to British infantrymen in 1907. And variants of this rifle continued to be used way up into the late 20th century. In fact, there are still police forces around the world that use this to the present day. Now, it's about the same weight as the German rifle, but it's differently distributed. It's a shorter weapon, and already it feels far more wieldy. Well, really, the key difference is in this department here. First of all, you can fit 10 rounds in this magazine, not 5 like the German gun, so you can shoot double the number of bullets before you have to reload. And secondly, this bolt action here is very different. It's much smoother, much easier to operate. Right, let's give it a go. It's so noticeable. The bolt action is so much smoother, and the effort you've got to put into it is so much less. It's just a far shorter range that you've got to move the bolt through compared to the German Mauser. And when you are here ready to fire, your finger's right here on the trigger. It's a small difference, but I think it's a really important one. Also feels like a far lighter weapon almost. It's shorter, it's easier to use. It's much quicker to fire. In fact, the British Army in 1914 went to war knowing that all of the infantrymen could fire 15 aimed shots every minute. In fact, one rifle instructor was able to fire off 38 aimed rounds in 1 minute. That's a phenomenal rate of fire. The German army, when they met the British army in the second half of 1914 in the fields of France and Belgium, were often convinced they were attacking troops armed with machine guns, when in fact what they were doing was marching into the concentrated rifle fire of British infantry armed with the Lee Enfield. Let's go up here and have a look at the target, see how I do. Well, not brilliant, not an expert marksman, but not bad for an inexperienced rifleman. A few shots on the target there. Not great spacing, but 7,500 metres. Just goes to show how good those rifles are that you can give to someone pretty inexperienced like me. These rifles are capable of delivering the bullets onto the target as required. But ultimately, the big difference between the two guns in World War I wasn't accuracy, it was rapidity. Which rifle could fire the most rounds? And if you want to put it to the test, you don't want me, you need a professional marksman, like Andy. Firing as many bullets as possible under the same conditions, the Lee Enfield nearly always comes out on top. With its smoother loading system and 10-round magazine, this was the world's most effective rifle. The main point is that both those rifles were brutally efficient at the job they were designed to do. The technological revolution, the firepower revolution that had taken place before the First World War meant that individuals could shoot far more accurately and far further away. And that's why the area between the two armies, this no man's land, became a total killing zone. This was like nothing else in the history of warfare.